Do you see Georgia doing a law similar to Arizona's with immigration? Because I'd like to see the whole southern end of the United States pass the exact same law.
I do. Here's the thing, and some of my conservative friends disagree with me about this, but I've read the Arizona bill. There are actually two bills they passed, and they combined them into one. They're less than 20 pages. It's not a hard read. But essentially, when an officer arrests you or detains you for the commission of some other act, then they're allowed to, ask about your immigration status. Now, listen, if you get stopped by an officer right now, they ask you things like, do you have a driver's license? Are you a legal driver? Have you been drinking? Have you done any drugs? Do you have any weapons in your car? They ask you all kinds of questions like that. That's fine. We've accepted there's sort of a colloquy of questions that they ask you when they pull you over if they have any suspicion like that. But they're pulling you over for something else that gives them that suspicion. And then if they find that you're illegal, they turn you over to the federal authorities. Listen, you've got all these pundits that are upset about this. Oh, this will hurt their feelings. It's going to be like Germany, and you're required to have papers. Listen, when you go to a foreign country, you better have your papers with you because they're going to ask you. When you check into a hotel in Europe, they ask you to show your papers. If you get stopped there, they show your papers. In Mexico, the audacity of the Mexican president to stand on the steps of the White House with a supportive United States president nodding his head and criticizing our law, when the Mexican law is that if you are an illegal citizen there, they arrest you and put you in jail. It's a crime in Mexico. I mean, if we simply create a reciprocal law to mirror Mexico, it would be much more harsh than the things they're talking about doing right now. So I'm all for a reciprocal law, and how could they say that's not fair if that's their own country's law? But the reality is, all they're doing is checking your status if you're pulled over for something else. And the big criticism is, you guys shouldn't mess with this. It's a federal law, not a state law enforcement issue. Let me tell you how ridiculous that is. Bank robbery is a federal law. When the bank alarm goes off during a robbery, guess who responds? The local first responders, the law enforcement. And guess what they do when they find the bank robbers? They arrest them, and they detain them, and the federal authorities prosecute them for bank robbery. Do they really mean to say that when the bank alarm goes off, we have to wait for an FBI agent to come from wherever they are? I mean, that's silly. It doesn't happen. Kidnapping. If you take a child across the Alabama line, it's a federal crime. That's a federal crime. Guess who responds to the kidnapping? I mean, the FBI will try to help solve it, and they'll get involved, certainly. But the people that respond and make the arrest are local law enforcement. And then the federal authorities prosecute the case for kidnapping across state lines. Guess who arrested Tim McVeigh for a federal crime? He blew up a federal building. It was a federal crime. He was arrested and detained by local law enforcement for a traffic violation, just like Arizona's law provides for. And he was turned over to federal authorities who arrested him, who convicted him, tried him, and sentenced him to death for a federal crime. Now, are we really going to say that this is a shame because local law enforcement pulled him over and detained him for the federal authorities, and really that should have been a federal responsibility? This is beyond common sense. Just because it's against federal law, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't cooperate, make the arrest with the people that are on the ground and can do that, and then turn them over to federal law. The truth is, they're just derelict in their duty to prosecute these folks and to deal with it. So they don't want, it hinders them in looking the other direction when you have local law enforcement saying, by the way, we have a group of people here that are illegal, and you need to come pick them up. They don't want that because they have to deal with it. So I am all for the Arizona law. I've read through the law. I can't find any major flaws with it. I do think we don't want to get in a situation where we're profiling people and, but this is not what this is about. In fact, the Arizona law specifically says it's not what it's about. And someone said to me, how do you know that they're breaking the law? Because they're doing things that people that are breaking the law do. I mean, it's sort of like, Tim McVeigh and these guys, they act funny when you pull them over. They run. They do things to evade law enforcement. I mean, they act like people do when you're not following the law. And that gives rise to a suspicion, and that gives rise to the police asking questions. And I think it's fair and legitimate, and I hope that the state does join Arizona.